from even the cleaner to any kind of hospital staff, doctors, nurses, so kind, so caring, so polite. You ask them a question, they will explain it to you. Because American doctors often, they'll just tell you, okay, take this, and then, come back in 2 weeks or whatever.
Meet Dmitry, a Ukrainian-American who moved from the US to the Philippines 5 years ago. He shared with me why he decided to leave his well-paid job in New York City to move to Manila, describes why the Philippines offers the best quality of life for foreigners, and explains why poverty is the biggest misconception about the country. I'm Max, and on this channel I talk to expats all over the world. Let's go!
A lot of my friends and family even, to this day, kind of like perplexed. They're asking me, why would you want to move to the Philippines from New York City?
Yeah.
Why? This is the third world country, it's a poor country. No, this is not all a third world country. You can have a first world quality of life here as well.
Yeah.
If you have the funds for it, but you don't need so much wealth and riches in order to have a good quality of life here as well. Especially in today's life where so many people are working remotely.
Yeah.
The digital nomads that are working from home, this is one of the best places to live. If you can, make a living working on your computer remotely, honestly, this is kind of a no-brainer if you like the kind of lifestyle. I left, a decent paying job. I had my own house, my own apartment rather, very nice car, and I was very comfortable in how I was living in New York. But as far as opening myself up more to the world generally, and to have a more fuller, richer life, I guess you could say. I'm really happy for that here, because now I get to experience a third part of the world that I live in. I experienced, the Soviet life, however little it was. I was just a kid when I left, but obviously I still, have some experience that I can claim that I had. Obviously, the United States, the heart of the Western world, you could say, the capital of the world, as it once used to be known as. And now I'm the other side of the world, 12 hours difference.
Yeah.
Between New York and Manila. So I'm really happy here.
Living in New York, what did you know about the Philippines overall? Well,
I've always known that the Philippines is known for kind-hearted, warm souls of people that live here.
Yeah.
One of the crazy statistics that actually I learned recently, I kind of knew about it before, because I've unfortunately had a lot of experience dealing with the hospital system in New York City. And every medical establishment that you go to, you're very, very likely to see Filipino nurses and doctors.
Yeah.
And healthcare practitioners generally, a lot of them are Filipinos.
Yeah.
So I learned recently that 30% of all foreign nurses that work in the United States are from the Philippines.
Wow.
That is a crazy statistic, because nurses and people come from all over the world to practice nursing in the United States, but 30% of them are from this part of the world only, the Philippines. That should tell you something. It tells that the Filipino people are very warm-hearted by nature, and they're also are very intelligent by nature, because to be a nurse, to be a medical practitioner, ideally it takes both. If you want to be good at your job and do it from the right place in your heart.
What do you think Americans don't understand about the Philippines? What they don't get about the country?
Most Americans seem to think that the Philippines is a very poor country with no infrastructure, nothing but poverty, and living in squalor, with maybe a handful of people who work for the government or for the banks or something like that, who have a little carve out for themselves. But in reality, there are a lot of nice places to live here for people who have more regular day jobs. It's not a dog-eat-dog world when it comes to finances, as like it is in some places that I'm used to, particularly New York City.
Yeah.
Because the culture of the Western world in many cases is people will step over each other's throats just to get ahead financially, just to get an extra buck. Because when it comes to morals, when it comes to common human decency, all of that goes out the window when it comes to the bottom line. When it comes to taking care of number one, taking care of myself. I'm gonna take care of myself. I don't give a rat's ass about anybody else. I'm just going to do what's best for myself, for my financial well-being. That's the mindset of a lot of Westerners, unfortunately. Here in the Philippines, it's not like that, and I love it. I'm all for it. But at the same time, I noticed numerous times when I'm thinking, wow, there is such an awesome financial opportunity to make a crazy amount of money, like a killing, and nobody's taking advantage of it. Parking lots is an easy example. Anybody can open up a parking lot anywhere in an empty spot in your lot and just start printing money, basically. But people don't do that for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Marking up prices because of a location. You can go to a hotel You can go to a hospital, you can go to an airport, restaurant, and the prices, yes, they're going to be more expensive than outside, but not by much.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the Western world, you go to any of those places, you're going to be paying through the nose for the same kind of morsel to eat. St. Luke's Hospital is the most advanced hospital anywhere in the Philippines, but you can go have a nice meal there, and you're going to spend $2 to $3 in there.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of crazy. It's wonderful, of course, for people who can afford to, pay more money. And if the business is able to continue functioning, charging this kind of prices, that's wonderful. But again, it's the mindset of not trying to nickel and dime everybody, penny pinching, and like just focusing on money, 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 money. Fortunately, this is not the kind of culture here in the Philippines, and that's one of the reasons why people here are not greedy like that. It's like the nature of greed, I believe, is really one of the worst aspects of humanity in general. I think, I personally firmly believe that the single biggest ill sin that holds the world back from happiness, you could say, is greed. If you take greed out of the equation from the human condition, or if you moderate it with humanity, then I think the world would be a much better place. And the Philippines is a very good example of people who are able to be happy even though they're not rich. And that's a wonderful thing.
When you ask yourself, who am I? You would say like American or like
Ukrainian-American.
Ukrainian-American.
Because I have sensibilities from like European sensibilities and American understanding about how to go day by day, basically. Like my mindset has been shaped by my experiences from everything. Because just because I moved to the U.S. When I was 9 doesn't mean that I automatically became like an American at heart and American in my mind and stuff like that. I still lived with my Russian-speaking family.
Especially in New York, there is a huge diaspora of like Russian speakers.
There is now. Not so much in the 80s, actually.
Not so much.
It was not like a big popular community because it was still during the Cold War. Remember? So the visibility and the influence of the Russian culture at the time was very limited compared to how it is now. But when the Cold War was over, there was a massive influx of Russian-speaking people from the former 15 republics, from all over, from Ukraine, from Latvia, from Belarus, from Russia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, like all over. So now definitely like the famous Brighton Beach that a lot of people know about in Brooklyn. That's a heavy-duty Russian neighborhood. There are a lot of other neighborhoods where there are a lot of Russian people, Russian-speaking people there. The reason why I say that is because could be from Ukraine, could be from Moldova, but
for Americans, it's like Russians or like
exactly. I'm just seen as a Russian, and then especially over the past couple of years, it's more important than ever to kind of
to explain,
one of those things, right? That brings me to my question. Where are you from, actually?
I was born in Sakhalin. It's an island.
Like Eastern Russia?
Eastern Russia, very close to Japan. So I spent my childhood in Vladivostok, and then we moved to Volgograd with my family, then to Moscow, and then to some other place. I lived in London, in the US, and in France a bit.
That's
different
awesome.
Parts of the world.
Wow, so you're like a world traveler, and then you haven't, like you're saying, you lived in those places. So that means that you develop some kind of like a sensibility of your own lifestyle and your own like internal culture, I guess you could say, from these different parts of the world, and you get to pick what works for you from different different lifestyles. That's pretty awesome. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying having a rich life, not being rich as in your pocket, being rich in your heart from experiencing life and experiencing what this world has to offer. That's a beautiful thing.
Speaking of like the relationships between locals and foreigners here in the Philippines, I had a call like with this girl. She's Filipino, so I was looking for the guests for my channel for the show. And like I had a quick chat with her. What she said was there is some misconception about how the rest of the world see the Philippines, because there are a lot of like foreigners, typical type of foreigners who come here to find Filipino wife.
Very common.
And then she told me the view on the Philippines from the rest of the world, she thinks is very shallow. So people see only these things, the Filipino wife thing or Filipino girlfriend thing. And maybe there is also the tension between local and foreigners, because the foreigners don't maybe deeply understand the culture and the place. What do you think? Is there a tension or is there a misconception? What do you think?
You are right to some extent, but I think it is also changing. What you're saying about the stereotypical, find a young bride here, and that's the reason why some foreigners come here. That was before. Nowadays, with the digital nomad lifestyle and the remote work lifestyle, that culture is changing, because this is another major reason of why people come here, is just to live here and work here remotely.
Yeah.
And this is becoming a very, very popular trend nowadays.
By the way, guys, if you also wanna start working remotely, one of the options is to start your own YouTube channel. And I prepared for you a PDF guide how to make your first $1,000 from your YouTube channel and then move to Manila. I'm kidding, just a YouTube thing. Okay, if you want this guide, it's for free. There's the link in the description. Go get it. And now back to the video.
When it comes to the tension between foreigners and locals, I would say I've seen very minimal of that, because it seems like Filipinos are very appreciative of foreigners, in big part because if a foreigner makes the decision to move to the Philippines, generally that means that they're accepting of the Philippines and the culture here. And the Filipinos really like that themselves. They really appreciate being liked by foreigners, because for better or worse, Filipinos very often they tend to very much look up to foreigners, especially Westerners, especially Americans. Being a former American colony and being very heavily influenced by American culture, American movies and music, naturally Filipinos are, they look up to American lifestyle, because to Filipinos, again, for better or worse, based on pop culture almost exclusively, which unfortunately does tend to lead people in the wrong way. If you just believe everything you see in the movies and on TV and in the news even, you're going to be totally screwed up in what you think about how life really is in that part of the world. But point is, Americans are very much respected and appreciated here, and by extension, foreigners generally are also, they're looked up on. Where it goes kind of too far in my mind, and something that I don't like too much to see that, is that I have personally, many times, I've experienced what I call reverse racism. Reverse racism is a real thing here, and not a lot of people realize that, especially people from other countries. Before coming here, they don't know that this is a thing. I might be, for example, sharing an elevator with a lady, and the elevator doors open, and she would wait for me to exit the elevator first. Or there's an old lady, one time, I will never forget this, there was an old lady that's like half my height, and she was waiting for me to step out of the elevator first. I was holding the door for her, and she was just waiting there. Or and I don't know, for some reason this elevator is seems to be the best example. Yeah. I'm by myself in the elevator, and then somebody's about to come in, and they see me, and they're like, oh, should I come in or should I just let him go? And then it's I can almost see the gears turning, and then think, no, I'm gonna go in. And they do go in, but there's a hesitancy because they're intimidated. Yeah. Which unfortunately, this is something that is just a fact, and a lot of people might not appreciate me saying this maybe, but at the same time, it is completely undisputed that a lot of Filipinos tend to be very intimidated by foreigners, but that's because they're intimidated by an artificial language barrier. Artificial because even though many of them do speak fluent English, they're kind of intimidated to speak to a foreigner, and they have this thing, they call it a nosebleed. Nosebleed. They say that. A nosebleed, not a literal one, is when they're trying to speak in English, or they're trying to communicate in English with a foreigner, and their brain is working so hard, trying to communicate so hard, they're trying to translate in real time. And it's and so they feel like they're gonna have a burst vein, and they're gonna have a nosebleed from that. It's I don't know, it's a Filipino saying, you could say. But yeah, Filipinos know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's also the reason some foreigners like it here.
True. Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately,
it's uncompetitive advantage.
Yeah, that's true. It's competitive advantage because you're just basically going to have an artificial advantage just by being who you are. By being a foreigner, you're automatically going to have a better chance to succeed in basically anything, which is really unfair. It's really unfortunate, and it's actually by extension, it is in itself an extension of why the Philippines is not able to progress itself, because they're artificially holding themselves back in many small ways, some large ways, but then when you combine it all together, the Philippines can do better than it's doing when it comes to the wealth of the nation. Now, the wealth of a country, again, like I was saying before, can be measured in many different ways. It's not only about finances, obviously, and this is something that a lot of people do not understand, but wealth in the heart, wealth in the soul, wealth in how happy you are in life. And this is where Philippines does, in fact, excel, because when it comes to the happiness index, offhand, I don't know where the Philippines stands, but I know for a fact from personal experience that I've been through some of the poorest neighborhoods in the Philippines. Particularly, one good example is Tondo. I actually used to participate in a beach cleanup operation with MMDA. It's really, unfortunately, it is a slum that the neighborhood looks like. It's a squalor that when you think of a poor neighborhood in the Philippines, you're thinking of Tondo, unfortunately. But at the same time, you see people smiling, you see people waving. You don't see people that look like they're gonna, jump at you and, like devour you and, tear you up for every penny that you got. But you see, children playing in the street, just kind-hearted people. Any neighborhood you go to, you're gonna see people waving. Here in BGC, or in Tondo, or in any other place that I've been to, it's really an incredible thing. One of the things that I really appreciate is that the culture of the heart of the Filipino people is really essentially just about the same in any neighborhood. Like in the US, for example, when you go to different parts of the country or even different parts of the city, you're going to have a very different personality culture of the people that you meet there. But here in the Philippines, it's not like that. And I think it's really a wonderful thing that you're always going to find people who are kind-hearted. Unfortunately, the salaries here are pretty low. Like, for example, people who work in a call center, very often they would be getting way under 30,000 pesos a month.
Which is?
30,000 pesos when it comes to US dollars. It constantly changes a little bit, but it's approximately maybe like not even $600 a month.
Yeah.
So that's very low. And of course, living in BGC for $600 a month is a no-go. That's not possible at all.
What would be the budget to live? Like, let's say family of like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like, let's say 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in BGC. What would be the
Right.
roughly the monthly budget?
Well, a typical condo building, like there are a lot of like luxury condos over here that have like 30 stories or more, with security guards, with the doorman, with the concierge and everything like that. You basically don't even need to have a key with you to tell you the truth. It's like so safe and it's so pristine in every way. So the rent for a 1-bedroom apartment, for example, which would be comfortable for 2-3 people, would be kind of tight unless one person is okay in the living room. But the rent for an apartment in a neighborhood like this would be roughly north of 50,000 pesos a month.
Which is
more than well, the rough figure you can think of 57,000 would be $1,000 US dollars. So 50,000 pesos is a little less than $1,000.
Yeah.
For Western prices, it's nothing. It's basically for New York prices, you're not going to get a studio apartment in like the worst neighborhood anywhere in New York for $1,000 a month nowadays. Comparing to this place, it's a dream. But for Filipino workers who live and work here, $1,000 a month is a crazy amount of money to spend on rent. For a family of 3, you would need a 2-bedroom apartment more comfortably. So that would be about $1,500 a month. So figure maybe about 80,000 pesos. But that's just for rent. You still have to pay for food, for transportation, for utilities. These things, the prices are actually very different from what some people would expect.
Yeah.
For example, food here is actually quite expensive when it comes to shopping for food, for produce like fruits and vegetables. A lot of things are actually kind of pricey, especially meats, and dairy products are really quite expensive here. Like if you want to buy cheese, sour cream is almost non-existent here. Cottage cheese, most people never heard of. It seems like it's not really a thing here. Because it's just it's so expensive. If you want to get those things, you have to go to some of the more expensive stores, and it's really out of reach. For example, you can buy 1 kilogram of sour cream, and it's going, or yogurt, and it's going to cost you about $10 or more sometimes. That's really, really expensive. But then on the other hand, transportation is really cheap here. Parking is dirt cheap. It's probably, when it comes to talking about the cost of living, bringing up something that's really inexpensive compared to most places, parking is crazy. You can park literally across the street from the stock exchange building. You can park in an indoor parking lot with a security guard where you have to get, one of those passes. 3 hours of parking will cost you less than $1, which is insane. It's 50 pesos for 3 hours.
Yeah.
After that, each individual hour is going to cost you 20 pesos, which is like not even 40 cents, like 35 cents per hour for parking indoors. It's insane. If you want to go somewhere, the cheapest way to get around is obviously a jeepney, those old school American military jeeps that have been repurposed by the industrious Filipinos who have done amazing things with them. If you look at some of the crazy things that are driving around on the streets of Manila, you really just have to look at the iconic jeepneys. All the designs that they have, the superhero characters and like different movie characters, and like Western culture is splattered all over the artwork that you see driving around in those giant, giant like Jeep limos, you could say. It's unbelievable. So you can get around for drive a good stretch of a road for like 10, 20 cents. It's so cheap to get around on them. The price has been going up little by little, and there's actually some question on the future of these jeepneys, because they are not only congesting the roads, they're also, a lot of them, because they're so old and they're not maintained very well in a lot of cases, they are horrible polluters. Now, there's been some improvement with that. In fact, I'm not hearing this term anymore so much, but a lot of people used to talk about this thing called the Manila lung, which means that when you are living or spending enough time in Manila, your lungs are going to be ingesting a lot of the smog, mostly from the jeepneys and some other vehicles that are riding around over here, because the smog and pollution is not very well regulated here, unfortunately. Like I said, it is changing. It has been improving over the years, but there's still some ways to go in improving that. And some municipalities are considering the possibility of removing jeepneys from the roads altogether, or I'm not sure what they're going to do with them, because jeepneys are basically like a cultural staple of the Philippines at this point. It's like the heart of an icon of what it means to be a Filipino and to get around the Philippines. You ride a jeepney. But then if you have some more money, then you could get a private ride from one of the motorcycle services. The most popular one is Angkas, but then there's also Joyride and Move It. Shout out to Move It, because my brother-in-law works for Move It. So yeah, hey John. You can go from here to Makati City, for example, for barely over $1 on a motorcycle, the back of a motorcycle. Now, riding in the back of a motorcycle might not be for everybody, especially if you're carrying stuff with you, but if you just want to go from point A to point B in the least amount of time for the least amount of money, and you want to do it in a fun way as well, go get a joyride. One of the most important things for foreigners who are considering either coming here for vacation, or especially if they want to move here, because everybody here speaks the international language. For better or worse, English is the most popular language in the world, and people from all over the world speak English. Here in the Philippines, you even go to a small village, and chances are most people are going to be able to have at least some basic level of communication in English, so you're not going to be lost here. You don't need a translator with you, basically. That's the point.
So that's your little trick.
This is very important,
Okay, then you're in the shade. You've been in the Philippines for quite a long time, but still, like, you're not used to the sun.
I am and I'm not. It's kind of a mixed bag. Thing is, a lot of places here in the Philippines and the cities, like especially here in BGC, I mean, BGC is kind of a unique environment for Philippines, but generally whenever you're walking somewhere outside and you need to take like a significant long walk somewhere, most of the time you can find shade. Either they're going to be trees, or they're going to be some kind of an awning or some kind of a cover. Like for example, when you're walking around the streets of New York City and it's really hot or it's really heavy rain or something like that, there's really not going to be any cover. When you're passing by some stores or any place generally, you're not going to find any place that you can find shelter. But here in the Philippines, because we have summertime all year round basically, and it becomes really, really burdensome, you could say, to be outside in places. You can actually see even like covers, like see this cover over here, like this glass shade from rain at least. You can see things like that actually just in the city streets. Like you're walking through Makati City, and there are places where you can find something pretty similar also.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure is built with that in mind, so that people can find shelter, which is really helps for quality of life. The quality of life here is really spectacular. If you are an expat looking for high standard of living, if that's what you're after, BGC is the place to go.
Yeah.
Of course, there are other places like Alabang, south of Metro Manila, like southern parts of Metro Manila. There are some really nice places in Makati City, also very nice, in fact. Nothing against them. But as far as like the cream of the crop, as far as the cost of living versus the quality of life, BGC is really second to none in anywhere in the world that I've ever been to in my whole life, I have to say. I had the opportunity, fortunately, to travel to a number of places in the world, a few places in Asia, a number of places in Europe, North America. But as far as a place where if you enjoy city living, if you're an urban dweller, and this is the kind of environment that's comfortable for you, BGC is amazing. Of course, there are places like Singapore, which arguably are even a higher quality of life, and other places in the world where you can technically have a better standard of living overall. But when you factor in the cost of living, no, BGC is. In fact, it would be kind of now that I think of it, it would be kind of an interesting challenge to find a place anywhere in the world where the cost of living and the quality of life is that far apart in the best way possible, Because like New York City right now, I would say, is more like the opposite. Cost of living is super high through the roof, and the quality of life is nowhere where it should be, considering how much you're paying for it.
What's your experience with the public health care system or private health care system?
Right. My wife got really terribly sick. She developed a neurological condition. It's actually been over 4 years already. If you guys are curious to see more of it, there's going to be a link to the video where I talk at length about what actually happened and our story. Fortunately, we're very lucky that my wife happens to have very good health insurance, Coco Life. Shout out to Coco Life, thank you guys. The cost of medicine in the Philippines, of course, is much, much lower than it is in the Western world, especially in the United States. I'm sure most people know that Americans pay more for medical care than any other place in the world by far. No other country comes close. Canada is the second, very far distant second when it comes to that. You can go to a specialist like a neurologist, which would be a high-class profession in the medical community, and you can spend literally $20, $25 to have a 1-hour appointment with a neurologist, and that's cash. This is not covered by insurance, by the way, in some cases, but that's just what it's going to cost. You can have a very expensive MRI procedure, which in other countries can cost thousands and thousands of dollars easily. It's going to cost you maybe $500 here in some hospitals.
And the quality is decent? It depends?
Now, it depends, really depends on the practitioner. Because when it comes to the equipment is available if you are able to go to the right hospital. St. Luke's Hospital, I know for a fact, has all of the most advanced medical equipment that you can find anywhere. They have, besides MRI machines, they have every other kind of advanced technologies. When it comes to the quality of medical care, it really depends on the specific doctor that you're going to deal with. But when it comes to the approach in medical care, that I have to say, from personal experience, is really second to none. Absolutely every person that I've ever come across, anybody working in any hospital, from even the cleaner to a doorman or security guard to the administrators that I've dealt with, to any kind of hospital staff, doctors, nurses, so kind, so caring, so polite, so forthcoming, open, heartfelt. I don't know, like every kind of possible positive description that you can give. It's and then also, like, they are intelligent. They do know what they're talking about. You ask them a question, they will explain it to you. They will actually go into detail why this and that. Because American doctors often, they'll just tell you, okay, take this and then come back in 2 weeks or whatever. Or okay, we're gonna do this. Why? That's not up to you. I'll take care of it, don't worry about it. But Filipino doctors, on the other hand, they're actually going into detail of why things are happening. When it comes to healthcare, they put the emphasis on the care part.
Yeah.
And really, that's wonderful, because a lot of a big part of getting medical care is being cared for. If the people that care for you are able to make you feel good from their approach, that already goes a long way. I mean, you don't necessarily need the absolute best medical care to be better. You can get a placebo pill and you can get better from that, technically. Yeah. I'm not saying that the kind of care that you get in the Philippines is as good as a placebo, obviously not. But it's the mindset that you get from the healthcare that already is going to help you get better just by itself.
Would you ever go back to New York City?
To visit, yes.
To visit, yeah, but not to live?
To live, honestly, no, for many different reasons. The culture, the climate, the cost of living, the dog-eat-dog world mindset, the greed, the insanity of life, where you never know what's going to happen. If you're going to get pushed on the train tracks, if you're going to get randomly stabbed, if you're going to be walking down the street on 34th Street or like on anywhere in the Midtown Manhattan, and then all of a sudden right by my office where I used to work on like 22nd Street and Broadway, and then a homeless guy is going to start chasing you. There's a video about that I'm going to be posting sometime. It's insane. I was walking down the street and then all of a sudden I had to literally run for my life. During the middle of the day, people sitting on lawn chair, on chairs, like enjoying their lunch or whatever. And then I had to run in between them for my life because there was a homeless guy chasing after me. Just because he saw that I was filming and that he didn't like the fact that there was a camera out.
Yeah.
It's a crazy place. I would never want to live there again.
If you want to hear more stories of inspirational, fun and impactful people, watch the next video. I promise you will enjoy it. No, seriously, you will.